Rain fell in sheets thick enough to erase mistakes. It made the harbor into a black mirror with ripples for memory. A sedan slid to a stop at the edge of a pier that didn't exist on tourist maps, headlights carving two pale wounds through the storm. The back door opened and a man stepped out, suit immaculate except for the rain that refused to respect money.
Ang Hyun.
Interim chairman when his father got sick. Poster child for mergers that saved jobs and ruined weekends. Engaged tomorrow for reasons that looked like love in magazines and like politics on spreadsheets. He kept walking. Sir. His assistant called from the car, voice pitched careful in the weather. We should wait for the team. Jian didn't slow. The pier was a line drawn between choices. At the far end, rope coils slumped like sleeping snakes. Beneath them, half hidden by shadows and rain, a girl. Not a runaway. Not drunk. Not dead. Yoon Se-ri. Soaked through, barefoot, hair pasted to her face. One wrist caught by a fishing net hook like the sea was refusing to let go politely. He knelt. Close up, the storm smell changed, salt, yes, but also something clean and electric like air after lightning. He slid his fingers under the hook and lifted it just enough to free her without tearing skin. Her pulse was frantic, bird-fast. When he gathered her into his arms, the world did what it always does for men like him. It tried to misunderstand. A fisherman's phone rose, capturing a sliver of truth that looked like a crime through glass and rain. The red record dot blinked approval. The caption wrote itself. Chaebol CEO abducts woman from restricted harbor. Please don't scream, Jian said. Low and even, voice tuned for boardrooms that mistake calm for kindness. I'm not here to hurt you. Her lashes fluttered. Eyes opened, blue with a depth that shouldn't belong to cities. She blinked once like adjusting to gravity. A whisper found its way through lips too cold to trust language. Hunter. Then the word broke, and so did she, into the dark cushion of unconsciousness. He carried her to the car. The assistant, Mr. Jung, hair flattened by rain, courage flattened by context, hesitated, then opened the door and made room for something he didn't understand. Call Min Clinic, Jian said. Private entrance. Tell them the patient is hypothermic and special. Special. Jung repeated because assistants buy time with echo. Just say it. The sedan took the curve out of the harbor like it had been born there. Behind them, the fishermen uploaded proof that storms are trending. By the time they reached the private clinic tucked into a hill where Seoul forgets its own noise, hashtags had learned to run. Hashtag Kidnaps CEO. Hashtag Harbor Girl. Comment sections filled with opinions from people who'd never tasted rain this sharp. Inside, glass doors breathed them into a corridor that smelled like antiseptic and expensive discretion. The on-call physician, a woman whose patients had titles, met them with a blanket and no questions that would be answered honestly. They warmed Se-ri slowly, the way you bring someone back from a far place without snapping the thread. She woke under a soft light, oversized sweater swallowing bare shoulders, for curling clear patience into her arm. The room hummed faint, machines pretending to be shy. He sat in the visitor chair, suit jacket off, white shirt rolled at the forearms. The rain in his hair had dried into a stubborn memory. You took me, she said, voice hoarse, vowels salted by somewhere not here. You were being hunted, he replied. I outran them for a few minutes. She studied him, cataloging details the way you do when the world insists you choose your next trust carefully. The careful jaw, the tiredness at the edge of his pupils, the way his hand still hovered near the call button like he believed help could be invited to stay. He looked like winter. His hands were warm. Why save me? She asked. His mouth made a line that told the truth before words agreed. Because I need you to save me back. She laughed once, short and skeptical. Then she saw the way he didn't blink. He rolled up his sleeve. Under his wrist, beneath skin so pale it could pass for marble, something lived, blue-black veins branching like ink in water, pulsing with a rhythm that belonged to tides, not hearts. It wasn't a bruise. It was a map growing. My family is cursed, he said. Every generation. One heir marked. The closer the wedding, the faster it spreads. There are remedies that pretend to work. Salt baths, ocean air. but they buy time, not mercy. And the cure? She already knew. The body keeps old knowledge in the dark, like a secret library. Only a mermaid, he said. He didn't flinch on the word. Touch by consent. 3 nights before the binding ceremony. Binding, she repeated, tasting the old word in a modern mouth. Marriage, he said, and the syllables sounded like a contract clause, not a promise. She looked down at herself. No skulls. No fins. Skin wholly, cruelly human. Panic posed as confusion and then gave up disguises. I need salt, she said. I need. It washed off in the rain, he said softly. You crossed thin water at low tide. It tricked you into legs. Water doesn't trick, she said, angry in a small way that felt like home. People do. He didn't argue. Hunter, he said. You said the word. They collect us, she said. For wishes. For luck. For men who think the sea owes them eternal anything. Humans call them something polite. Patrons. Conservators. Your word, sponsors. He absorbed that the way he absorbs a report that ruins an afternoon. They'll come back. They won't stop, she said. Silence learned how to sit between them. He said, my engagement is tomorrow. It solves problems for everyone but me. It accelerates the curse. And it gets me killed slowly. He looked at the 4 drip, at the window, at the rain that refused to retire. I can pay for protection. Lawyers. Houses with doors that do as they're told. None of it lasts against the people who think they own storms. He met her eyes. Hide with me. In public. In public, she echoed. Because there are kinds of hiding most ocean folk never study. Pretend to be my fiancé, he said. Long enough to stop a wedding I didn't pick and slow a curse I didn't invite. In exchange, protection. From hunters. From anyone who thinks you're an artifact. She let the words move through her like current finding its path. You want me to change your fate. I want you to give me time, he said. And I'll give you safety. You'll live human in a place that pretends to be kind. You'll be kept. Kept? She repeated, tasting the dislike openly. And if I say no? I put you back in the car, he said. I drive you to a coastline where no one with money remembers how to own things. And I hope I don't die before I find a better idea. The door opened just enough for Mr. Jung to slide in sideways, as if deference could be measured in angles. He handed Gian a phone. Sir, your fiancé's family. And legal. And the media desk. Gian ignored the phone. Water, he asked Seri instead. Do you want? Salt, she said. Not to drink. To hold. To know I could choose. Jung, who had studied improv under fear and found he was talented, vanished and returned with a paper packet from the staff kitchen. The kind you sprinkle on cafeteria eggs. She tore it with teeth, tipped the crystals into her palm, closed her hand around them. The relief wasn't total. But bodies say thank you in honest languages. A nurse in sensible shoes peered in. 10 minutes, Mr. Hahn. Police want a statement about the harbor video and your passenger. Tell them she's under my protection, he said. Tell them she is not a suspect, not a criminal, and not their jurisdiction. The nurse nodded because sometimes it's easiest to agree with sentences that sound like they can buy a hospital. She left. Seri watched him choose defiance over diplomacy like it was exercise he hadn't done in a while. You sound like a king. I'm a tired man with better lawyers than average, he said. And worse luck, she answered. Something like humor passed between them. It wasn't friendship. It was a ceasefire that looked like one. Your name? He asked. Yoon Seri, she said. Yoon like Yon, Seri like... Not Siri. Please don't call me Siri. Noted, he said. And it was the first human line he'd delivered all day. His phone vibrated again. Impatient light under glass. He didn't pick up. One more thing, he said, as if asking for a small favor instead of rearranging both their lives. If you agree, it must look real. She glanced at the sweater swallowed around her. The window slicked with city. I don't know how to be real here. I don't know how to be real anywhere, he said. and then looked embarrassed at the admission. Terms, she said, because the ocean doesn't barter but people do. No touching without asking. No ownership in front of your board or your mother. No hiding me in a room when the world talks. If I am your shield, I am also your voice. Agreed, he said without bargaining, which told her everything about the rooms he'd been surviving. And you listen, she added. If I say the water calls, you let me answer. I won't disappear, but I won't suffocate for your story. He met that with the kind of attention markets never earned from him. Yes, she opened her hand. The salt lay like stars. She offered her palm. He took it. The monitor traced both their pulses for a second, as if trying to decide which beat to keep. The light overhead flickered. In the parking lot, a hooded figure finally looked away from the clinic window. He texted a number saved as captain. Target confirmed. She's landlocked. Asset with her, Han Jian. A reply arrived instantly. 2 teams. Before dawn. A second message came from a different contact. Name withheld by the kind of courtesy only fear respects. Don't spook the fiancé's family. We need headlines that help us, not handcuffs. Upstairs, Jung cracked the door again, face bleached by screen glare. Sir, it's everywhere. They're calling it a kidnapping. Siri smiled without humor. Then kidnap me properly, she said to Jian, surprising herself with the calculus of survival. Announce it. Not kidnapping, engagement. Pull me into a story with fewer guns. Jian's heartbeat did a strange, relieved stutter at the thought of having any plan at all. A statement. Tonight, we'll control the first photo. We'll survive the rest. You sound like someone has said that to you before, she said. Many times, he answered. It never gets truer. She slid her legs over the bed. The sweater hung to mid-thigh. The nurse would complain. The storm would shrug. Jian offered his jacket. It smelled like rain deciding to be expensive. She took it, sleeves too long, shoulders too wide, warmth immediate. Ready? He asked. No, she said honestly. Which means I won't pretend when I have to tell the truth. They stepped into the corridor together. Cameras watched. Lifts breathed. Somewhere, a reporter rehearsed a question with teeth. Somewhere else, a boat engine turned over in a place the Coast Guard wouldn't patrol until morning. At the clinic exit, the automatic door paused half a second too long, the kind of glitch that writes itself into omens. As it opened at last, Seri squeezed his hand once, testing a new language. What if your curse is not your enemy? She said softly. What if it's a compass? Pointing where? He asked. Toward the first person who shelters you without asking, she said. Old stories like rules. And you? He asked, tasting a question he couldn't afford to say out loud. I don't know yet, she said. Ask me after the third night. They stepped into the rain that had learned both their names in 1 hour. Phones lifted in the dark across the street. A drone tilted its little eye. The sedan door opened. The city inhaled. The lobby doors learned suspense. They parted by millimeters, then gave up and obeyed. Outside, rain rehearsed headlines on car hoods. Across the street, phones rose like a field of tiny moons. Security formed a corridor with umbrellas. Lightning signed its name on the glass. Han Jian did not flinch. He adjusted his cuff as if the storm were a board meeting and stepped forward. Yoon Se-ri moved with him, hospital sweater swallowed by his jacket, bare calves flashing quick, purposeful. Mr. Jung hovered behind, already on 3 calls at once, apologizing to people who hated being told no. A shout cut through the weather. Mr. Han, who is she? A second. Are you engaged? A third. Is this the kidnapping? Se-ri's fingers tightened once, like a diver checking rope. He felt it and, for the first time in a year, decided to enjoy the weight of a choice. He stopped under the overhang where the rain made lace and shadow. You wanted a statement, he said. The microphones leaned. This is Yoon Se-ri. She is under my protection. And yes. He heard Ms. Choi somewhere in his future saying, control the first photo, survive the rest. We are engaged. The street inhaled. Cameras flowered. A drone dipped for a better sin. Since when? Was there a ring? Where's the fiancé's family comment? Is she a mare? The last question tangled itself, embarrassed by its own curiosity. The ocean keeps better secrets than people do, but gossip rarely drowns. Since now, Jian said simply. Details when it's safe. A black sedan coasted to the curb under practice precision. Doors opened like a magic trick with deadlines. Sayri dipped her head so the jacket collar covered her throat. The motion was not fear so much as ritual. Keep salt, keep breath, keep choices. Inside the car, the windows turned the city into a charcoal painting. Mr. Jung breathed in carefully measured units. Damage control team is online, he reported. Ms. Choi from PR wants any photo we approve within the hour. The other family, he didn't say fiancé, perhaps out of kindness, requested clarification. Also the harbor authority. Also the police. Also your mother. My mother gets tea, Jian said. Everyone else gets lines. Lines? Siri asked. Sentences that keep wolves tired. She smiled without trying to. Then the humor slipped. The salt packet in her palm had melted down to memory. She stared at her hand as if listening to a shoreline only she could hear. I'll need water. Real water. Not a problem, he said, and meant it like a vow a lawyer could notarize. The elevator in his private tower ran on silence and money. The penthouse door recognized him the way old dogs recognize footsteps. The space beyond was glass and air and the sort of furniture that doesn't squeak when you make mistakes. The city held its breath at the windows. Bathroom, he said, guiding, not hurting. Warm shower first. Then the pool. Pool? She asked, bracing for a rectangle that smelled like chlorine and rich people. Salt pool, he said. Therapy design. They told me it helps the mark. He rolled back his sleeve. The tide veins had crept farther, fingers of ink reaching toward the elbow, pulsing to a rhythm that didn't consult him. She stepped closer without touching, eyes narrowing. Tide is wrong, she murmured. Pull is too fast. Wedding tomorrow, he said. That word accelerates everything, she said. We slow it. Agreed, he said, and did not add the word please because his voice had already said it. Steam learned the edges of marble. She stood under hot water and felt skin remember what skin is for, cover, not disguise. The jacket steamed on the hook. The hospital sweater slumped into a shape called before. She closed her eyes. For one breath, she was not a girl on legs but a creature with currents for bones. Salt behind the tongue. A shoreline in her hair. When she opened them, Soul waited. The door cracked. His voice from the other side, respectful. There's a robe on the shelf. The pool is down 2 steps, glass door. I'll keep the lights low. She patted out in white, rope belt knotted twice. The robe dragged like a small cloud. He had dimmed everything to a twilight the city couldn't fight. The pool wasn't a pool so much as a blue-black mirror cupped by stone. A disguised lagoon. Shallow at one end, a deeper crescent beyond. He stood at the far rail, sleeves rolled high, tie gone, the tiredness on his face no longer pretending to be anything else. He looked like a storm that had decided to sit. Rules, she said, stopping a meter from the water. We said them. We keep them. I listen, he said, and I ask. She nodded. Then, ask. His throat moved. The mark on his wrist pulsed once, stubborn, like a child refusing bedtime. May I, his voice steadied. May I hold your hand under the water? Only your hand. Only as long as you allow. She considered him, the pool, the city looking in without understanding. Consent is not a form. It's a door you keep the key to. She stepped to the edge. You may, she said, and slid into the salt like going home through a different house. The first touch corrected both of them. His palm met hers under the surface, warm moving to warmer. The mark flared, not pain, something older, a recognition like 2 maps discovering they were of the same country. The blue threads under his skin swam, circled, then stalled, held. He exhaled, sudden, almost a laugh, almost a sob, settling for astonishment. "It's quiet," he said, surprised at the absence of panic, as if someone had turned off a machine he didn't remember building. "Because you asked," she said softly. "Curses hate manners." They stayed like that, fingers interlaced below the mirror, the city above them a rumor. She watched his shoulders drop by imperceptible degrees. He watched the color return to her mouth and the steadiness to her eyes. The robe billowed then settled, a white cloud learning how to float right. A phone chimed far away, the sound respectful and then forgotten. Closer, a second sound, the smallest click from an HVAC grate that had no reason to announce itself. Sayri's head turned. Water slicked down her hair like punctuation. "What?" he asked. "Metal," she said. "Light metal. Not house metal." He moved. A panel looked like a panel until a hand touched it knowing where. He pulled the grate, expecting dust. He found a camera the size of pity, its eye shut now, ashamed of what it had seen. He dropped it into the pool without ceremony. It died like insects do, quick, quiet, unimportant and telling. "Hunters," she said. "Or headlines," he answered. "Either way, predators." He reached for a towel, then stopped himself and asked, "May I?" "You may," she said, and he wrapped her in white without stealing any of the night she needed to keep. Mr. Jung's silhouette hovered in the hall like a conscience with paperwork. "Sir, Pier is ready. The other family is insistent. Legal requests a call. Also, Captain Park sent flowers to the clinic, which is aggressive even for him." "Return them to the sea," Sayri said, cool. "With a rock." Jung blinked in admiration his training didn't cover. "I'll frame that sentiment." "Press first," Jian said. "But not their podium." "Ours." "Our where?" Jung asked. "Here," Jian answered, and Sayri followed his look. The penthouse has a balcony like a proscenium over the city's throat. They dressed for a war named Soft. He chose a midnight suit and a white shirt without a tie, the uniform of men who intend to tell a truth so polished it won't look like trouble from far away. She chose simple. A black slip dress from the guest wardrobe Miss Choi insists every crisis needs. Hair pulled back, a single silver pendant over salt-kissed skin. On her mouth, nothing. She would not hide behind colors human tongues invented to sell courage. Miss Choi arrived like weather with a deadline, shepherding 2 camera ops and a lighting kit that could make holiness look credible. "We go live from your balcony in 5, she said without hello, eyes doing math on both their faces. "We speak first. We don't apologize." "Do we lie?" City asked, curious. "We tell the part that feeds wolves something else to chew," Miss Choi said. "And we keep the marrow." The balcony doors opened on a skyline that pretended to be infinite. Rain braided itself into background. The live light went red. Jian spoke first, voice low, consonants clean. "Rumors travel faster than weather. Let this be slower and steadier. I ask someone to stand with me because I am tired of standing alone." He paused. Not for effect, for breath. He looked at Sayri like a man mortgaging pride to fund honesty. "This is Yoon Sayri. We are engaged. We will not answer questions designed to make you hate who you do not know. We will answer for our choices if they hurt anyone who didn't choose them." Sayri leaned into the microphone with a poise people usually practice in mirrors. "I'm not a singer," she said. "I'm not an actress. I don't belong to any family you follow. I work. I pay rent. I carry umbrellas. Yesterday I helped a man breathe in a storm. He helped me not be carried away by people who name ownership as love." A comment waterfall scrolled, softened, scrolled again. PR sliced offensive phrases off like surgeons removing words that poison blood. Questions pelted the feed. Her past. Her papers. Her ring. The other fiancé? "Rings are symbols," Jian said evenly. "We will not auction one to buy your blessing." "And the other fiancé?" A voice shouted from the street below, audio crawling up like ivy. He blinked once. "Arrangements end," he said. "People begin." The live ended before the world could surprise them with a better question. Miss Choi exhaled like a person who knew which gods she had accidentally pleased. Good, she said. Now we bunker. Bunker? City asked. Hunters, Miss Choi said simply, as if listing weather forecasts. Rain, fog, armed men with tidy invoices. They sealed the balcony doors. The building's private security, men who prefer boredom and get paid to, doubled positions at elevators and stairwells. In the kitchen, a kettle remembered it could sing. Sayri poured salt into a shallow dish and left it by the entry, an old ritual in a new house. Night advanced with its quiet army. Headlines, trucks, whispers through metal. Somewhere below, a parking sensor chirped twice and volunteered to be ignored. Mr. Jung set a tablet on the dining table, building maps, thermal cam feeds, a dot matrix of pulses that meant human and heat and maybe trouble. At 2 a.m., the lobby camera showed flowers arriving again. White lilies that pretended innocence badly. The card read, "For your radiant bride." The signature was a flourish that refused to say a name. Captain Park, Miss Choi said. After-hours gifts with afterlife vibes. Send them back, Jian said. To the sea, Sayri added. Consider them sunk. Miss Choi nodded, texting the night crew a note that managed to be both professional and vindictive. At 3, the learn to ignore sensor in the service stairwell pinged once. Mr. Jung's finger froze above the map. That's the door the builders forgot to label, he said. I'll check. Not alone, Jian said. Not you, Miss Choi countered. Jian, you stay where the cameras are. Predators hate keeping receipts. Jung, take Ryu from security and the penthouse lights flickered. Not power loss, more like a polite cough. The HVAC sighed. The glass heard a sound it didn't like. Drones, Sayri whispered. The word tasted like tin. They moved as if the room had already been mapped. Miss Choi to the console. Jung to the hallway. Jian to the place between Sayri and any opening that pretended to be a window. Outside, the wind escalated by a centimeter per second, so small a change that only the building noticed, and the ocean, which knows everything about patience. A faint thup, almost nothing, preceded the crack of tempered glass accepting a new job it hated. A palm-sized hole appeared low, a perfect, deliberate circle. A tube hissed through it and blossomed a net that looked like thread and felt like iron, edges weighted, lines fine enough to make air into water you couldn't breathe. It flew at Sayri. She stepped sideways, one clean, impossible movement as if the room had shifted a half-second to give her space. The net snagged the bowl of salt and collapsed on tile with a sound like a trapped ghost. Another thup. A second net unfurled from a different angle. Jian didn't think, his body did. He threw the dining chair into the net mid-flight. It tangled, resisted, pulled, stuck. He grabbed Sayri's wrist without thinking, then stopped, caught by the rule, corrected. May I? Yes, she said on the same breath, and he hauled her behind the kitchen island as the net slapped the floor where her ankle had been. Mr. Jung burst back from the corridor, panting, righteous with adrenaline and carrying a fire extinguisher as if it were a sword blessed by bureaucracy. He blasted the ruined hole with foam. The tube coughed and died. The drones, insulted, retreated to a smarter distance. Inside help? Miss Choi said, voice as flat as a blade. Hunters or house? Jian asked. Both if they're efficient, she answered. He looked at Sayri. Salt dusted her wrists. Courage dusted the rest. Night 1, he said, oddly gentle in a room made of angles. You gave me quiet. She nodded. Night 2, she said, listening to a tide only she could hear. Gives you teeth. How many floors? Jian asked Jung. 4, Jung said. And closing. Miss Choi slid a drawer open and revealed a metal case the size of a lunchbox and the color of We Planned This. A portable jammer. We blind their comms at the door, she said. We flood the floor with white light. We make the cameras witnesses in our favor. And we keep talking until the city decides to be on our side. And if they breach anyway? Jung asked. Sayri's eyes moved to the pool, then to the balcony, then to the breach circle in the glass. A perfect salt-rimmed ring. Then, she said, calm as a held wave, we open the water. How? he asked, halfway ready, halfway terrified. Trust me, she said. Ask me. He did. May I trust you? The question was ridiculous. It was also the only one that mattered. You may, she answered. And the building's heart counted down the floors like a drum major leading a parade into a war. The elevator chimed, polite as ever. 3 shadows fell across the foyer. The first foot crossed the salt line. The house exhaled like a lung learning who lives in it. The elevator chimed like a polite dare. 3 heat signatures paused outside the private foyer, the way wolves pause before remembering what their teeth are for. Ms. Choi slid the jammer's switch. A red LED steadied. Their radios just forgot language, she said. Mr. Jung took position behind the island. Extinguisher ready, courage loud. Se-ri touched the salt ring on the floor, testing its patience. When they cross, the house will listen, she murmured. Listen to what? Jian asked. To the older rules, she said, and the words did not feel like metaphor. The first boot broke the line. The air changed, subtle as a tide turning, immediate as a breath held too long. The door swung wider. A second boot, a third. Black silhouettes flowed in low, net launchers up, goggles bright with green certainty. The lead man swept left to tag the pool controls. His partner raised the tube toward Se-ri. Lights, Miss Choi said. White burned the room clean. The men flinched on instinct. Their goggles became liabilities. Mr. Jung fired foam through the ruined pane. The third man cursed and lifted his sleeve to shield his face. The second net bloomed. May I? Jian asked. Already moving? Yes, Se-ri said. He cut in front of her, grabbed a dining chair by the back, and threw it high. The net wrapped wood and fought gravity instead of her. The lead man recovered and lunged. Se-ri stepped forward, palm up, fingers spread as if asking to read a pulse the house had hidden. Water in the salt pool rose. Not a trickle, not a splash, but a standing sheet. A blue-black curtain that did not spill so much as stand between her and the intruders. The sheet accepted the net, swallowed it, and dropped it heavy to the tile. The men looked at water the way some people look at weather, like an inconvenience named destiny. The lead raised his launcher to fire again. Don't, Se-ri said, gentle. He fired. The water thinned, braided itself into cords, caught the net mid-flight, and unraveled it like silk. Threads fell in a soft heap that decided to be useless. The lead reached for his sidearm. Se-ri glanced once at Jian. May I? You may, he said. The water moved again. Forward this time, low and fast. One clear blue hand against boots. Men who trained against knives and lies were not trained against a tide that fit in a room. They went down, surprise louder than pain. Mr. Jung vaulted the island with bureaucratic grace and zip-tied wrists with the efficiency of a man who had watched 3,000 security drills and finally got to use one. In the service stairwell, footsteps retreated. A door slammed. Miss Choi thumbed her comm, remembered it was useless to them and wonderful to her jammer, and grinned without humor. Run. I dare you, she whispered at the screen. The room remembered quiet by degrees. Jian turned to Se-ri, hair wet, dress damp, robe abandoned, pulse steady. You told me you were not a singer nor an actress, he said, breath finding humor. You neglected to list hydrodynamics. I told you I was from the sea, she said, then softened her voice. I didn't tell you enough. Then tell me now, he said. She looked at the pool, at the salt ring gone to crumbs, at his wrist where the blue threads had stilled like a spell that decided to nap. Your family's contract, the one that binds you to a name you don't like, was written on a night when the moon refused to be reasonable. They promised the ocean a bride. They paid with everything but honesty. The sea took its time as it does. It marked you when the arrangement was made. It marks harder as the vow approaches. And you? He asked quietly. She met his eyes. A girl pulled out of a rip current by a man with no voice left to shout. The sea gave me legs long enough to walk my debt to shore. The legs came with a cost. Salt, careful, rules. If I ever became property, the ocean would call me back and close the account. A tiny smile flickered. I did not plan to become property. You never will, he said, so simply that the room believed him. A faint chirp bled in from the intercom, a sound house systems make when someone smart thinks they're being discreet. Ms. Choi muted it, fed it into an isolated speaker, and let the voice arrive filtered and small. Han, the voice said, smooth, clipped, expensive.
Ido admire improvisers.
But you've made this theatrical. Captain Park, Ms. Choi said, identifying warmth with contempt. When will you learn to text like a civilian? Ms. Choi, Park replied, amused. Always a pleasure to negotiate with the department that has no door. Jian stepped closer to the mic. You sent men into my home. I sent invoices, Park said. Men volunteered. Those men are tied like baggage, Ms. Choi reported, looking at the heap of nylon and pride. Park chuckled, light as rain on glass. Enjoy your victory, but you have a sunrise problem. Is that a threat? Jung asked, still breathing like a man who'd enjoyed cardio. It is arithmetic, Park said. At dawn, the curse completes its circle. By noon, the board votes. By evening, your images are on screens you do not own. Or, the voice sweetened as slime does, hand the girl to the harbor master at Pier 12 before first light. We call it a misunderstanding. Your wedding proceeds on schedule. Your mother stops praying to lawyers. Everyone sleeps. Sayri stepped to the speaker, calm as tidal flats. And me? She asked. You go home, Park said, as if unspooling kindness. Or you go under. It depends which rules you prefer. Silence landed like a stone. We're not trading people, Jian said, and the sentence came out ground flat, not performative. How very modern, Park murmured. We'll discuss at the pier. Bring your father's compass. The harbor prefers etiquette. The intercom clicked dead in the smug way expensive equipment learns to. Time, Ms. Choi asked. Jung checked 2 watches he did not trust and one he did. 3 hours to first light. The pier is a 15-minute drive if the city cooperates, which it won't. Then we don't drive, Ms. Choi said. We publish. She turned to Sayri and Jian, face bright with a plan that would terrify people who disliked honesty. This doesn't end with a dockside ransom. It ends with the city watching a choice. You want to go live from Pier 12, Jian said, understanding the gambit. I want to drag sunlight over a bargain written in moonlight, Ms. Choi said. He thrives in rumors and invoices. We move to witnesses and daylight. Leaving the penthouse means losing the high ground, Jung warned. We're not a fortress, Ms. Choi said. We're a broadcast. Jian looked at Sayri. If we do this, we put you in his reach. And in the city's sight, she said. Predators hate crowds. Her gaze fell to his wrist. The blue threads had stilled, but they had not receded. Your mark buys time when we're near water. On land, it will pull again. If we go through water as much as we can. Can you? He hesitated, the question too large to sound reasonable. Call any? She considered the map in her mind that was not drawn with streets. I can call what is willing to be called. Fountains cooperate. Rooftop tanks are vain. The river is proud. It dislikes being summoned but loves being seen. Miss Choi was already packing. Spare batteries, 2 lav mics, a GoPro with a conscience, the jammer for a pocket, and a thermos of tea because every war ends in a hallway where someone needs their hands to stop shaking. Pier 12 in 90 minutes, she said. We go via Skybridge to the South Tower, down the service lift, through the hotel kitchen, out the loading bay, swing by the river stairs. We stream from minute 1. If Park blinks, the city will catch it. Jung checked the feeds. 2 more drones, he warned. And a van with plates that belonged to a florist who didn't wake up to go to work. Let them follow, Ms. Choi said. We'll provide an excellent show. Sayri touched the pool water once more, palm down, fingers splaying a farewell. The surface shivered. The sheet folded itself back into mirror, obedient and unoffended. She reached for a towel. May I? Jian asked. You may, she said, and his hands made warmth without claiming anything else. They left the penthouse at 4, the city gray with almost morning, the corridors smelling faintly of lemon and strategy. The skybridge vaulted above an avenue of red lights blinking patient. Halfway across, the river showed itself between towers, a strip of black silk slowly remembering silver. A drone angled in, too curious. Jung held the jammer high. The drone stuttered, forgot calculus, and went sideways into an architectural opinion. Somewhere on a balcony, a man cursed in a language cameras don't translate. They descended through the hotel that keeps secrets for a living. A baker paused mid-croissant to watch them pass. Flour turned the air into fog for a second, then settled. The loading bay door rolled up on a hinge that needed oil. Beyond it, the city offered them an empty street like a bet. They took it. Ms. Choi walked backward, framing shots she wanted the world to own. Jung scanned corners with the intensity of a man who hates surprises. Jian stayed half a step in front of Se-ri until she caught his sleeve and tugged him even. "Together," she said. He nodded, and the word learned to breathe. At the river stairs, Se-ri stopped. The water lay below like a polished mirror with a temper. "May I?" Jian asked, not sure what he was offering. "Hold my hand," she said. "Only until the river recognizes us." He did. The mark steadied, then warmed, then did a stranger thing. It dimmed, as if the threads had decided to let skin be skin for a minute. She spoke, not in words but in the shapes words make when water listens. The surface rippled once, twice, then rose barely, a skin thicker than it had any right to be. They walked along the lowest steps and did not get wet. "Bridges help," she whispered. "They teach water where to hold still." At Pier 12, lights burned an artificial moon. A crane hunched like a sleeping animal. Park waited in a dark coat, tie loose, smile correct. Behind him, 2 men with umbrellas that had never seen rain. Beyond them, a sedan that believed in outcomes. A small crew floated at the periphery. Stringers, vloggers, the night shift of a city that eats stories for breakfast. Ms. Choi lifted a hand. Her phone flashed live in the corner. Comments started a river of their own. "Good morning," Park said, voice crisp enough to cut bread. "You brought an audience." "We brought witnesses," Ms. Choi corrected. Park's gaze flicked to their fingers, interlaced, to Jian's wrist, quiet, to Se-ri's face. Calm enough to annoy a man who loves leverage. "You know the terms," he said. "Tradition demands." "Tradition once demanded drowning girls to appease weather," Se-ri said. "We edit tradition." Park smiled without changing temperature. "Ah, ethics from a riptide." Jian stepped forward. "You will not take her." "And you," Park said, almost tender, "will not make noon." He lifted a hand. Somewhere upriver, a valve clanked. A low horn sounded once, the kind ships use when they are about to move even if you are in the way. The pier trembled, subtle and sure. "May I trust you?" Jian whispered. "You may," Se-ri said, and let go of his hand. She stepped to the edge. The river heard its name pronounced correctly and came closer. Park's smile thinned. Ms. Choi's live counter ticked up. Comments turned into a chorus of "don't" and "do" and "God please win." "Last chance," Park said softly. "Come home, girl." Se-ri looked at the water, then at Jian, then at the lens that carried a city. "I am not a girl you can invoice," she said, and the river stood up. It was not a wave. It was a wall, no higher than a person, no louder than a book dropped in a library, and it slid between Park and everyone else with the intimacy of breath. Park stepped back, shoes losing argument with slick wood. His men lifted umbrellas like swords and learned physics has a better resume. Jung's comm buzzed with the one channel the jammer allowed. "Building security." "Sir," a voice panted, small with distance. "We found a second device in your pool room, connected to the old fire mains. It's wired to burst your sprinklers with salt at dawn. Someone meant to drown your mark." Ms. Choi met Jian's eyes over the top of her phone. "If Park can't seize her, he'll fake the cure and finish the curse." Park saw the understanding click, and for the first time his smile cracked. "Turn off the stream," he snapped to no one visible. "Now." A shadow moved at the edge of the pier. Fast. Wrong. Close. A hand shot out from beneath the deck boards and yanked Sayri's ankle. She slipped. Clean. Sudden. Soundless. Sayri. Jian lunged. The river swallowed her. For a heartbeat he saw nothing. Only rain stippling a black mirror and his own hands empty of what mattered. Then the water changed its mind. It curved inward, not down, and he saw her through a skin of silver. Eyes open, hair like ink, a shape that remembered fins without asking permission to grow them. She wasn't drowning. She was deciding. Sayri. Jian dropped to the edge, palm out over the surface. His other hand found the brass compass in his pocket, a weight his father called harbor etiquette. He set it on the pier cleat. The needle refused north and pointed to the current instead. Parley, Miss Choi said low as her phone stayed live. You just rang the harbor's bell. Captain Park stepped forward, coat neat, smile narrower. Pretty toy, Mr. Han. Etiquette doesn't beat arithmetic. Neither do invoices beat witnesses, Miss Choi said, tilting the lens to catch him and the compass in one frame. Beneath the surface, Sayri's hand rose and touched water from underneath. The river climbed her palm and made a glove of silver. She looked up. He didn't reach further. He asked, because rules work when you mean them. May I? You may, she said, voice a ripple through rain, and he gripped her wrist under the water. The mark under his skin flared, then steadied, then did the new impossible thing. It warmed without spreading. He exhaled like a man who had been taught terror and was now unlearning it in public. Park flicked 2 fingers. A man at his shoulder shifted, umbrella angling, not against rain, but to hide a net launcher. Last chance, Park said lightly. Return the asset. Keep the ring date. Everyone keeps breakfast. We don't trade people, Jian said, ground flat. The umbrella dipped. Lights, Miss Choi murmured, and Jung lifted the jammer. The netter's calm died mid-click. He hesitated, the precise length of time it takes caution to be useful. Too late. The river stood up. Not a wave. A wall, waist-high, quiet as a book shut in a library. It slid between Park and everyone else, drawing a clear blue line across the pier. Park took 1 step back, shoes losing jurisdiction over slick wood. Jung's phone buzzed on the only channel the jammer allowed. He cupped a hand. Security. Penthouse. We found a second device wired into your old fire mains, scheduled to dump salt through the sprinklers at dawn. Fake cure, real drowning. It's Park. Ms. Choi's camera never blinked. Thank you, building. She lifted her voice. Captain Park. Care to comment on attempted homicide by plumbing? Park's smile cracked, then reassembled as something he could invoice. Turn off the stream. No, Sayri said. She climbed the last inch of height the river offered and stood on water so thin you could mistake it for courage. Rain stitched silver into her hair. Her palm found Jian's again under the surface. She didn't look at Park. She looked at the lens. Old rules speak of 3 nights before binding, she said, the words carrying like tide. The sea counts nights by tide turns, not calendars. It asks for 3 vows. Ask, return, witness. She nodded once, almost to herself. Night 1 we asked and the mark quieted. Night 2 we fought and returned what hunters tried to steal. At dawn, the sea's 3rd night, we witness in the open. She raised their joined hands an inch, still in the water, so anyone with eyes could see consent and contact and the lack of theft between them. Witness, she said softly. The compass needle swung, then settled not to north but to them. The mark beneath Jian's skin unwound, blue threads loosening like knots that remembered how to be rope again. He shivered, not from cold, from the absence of a pressure he had learned to plan around. On the far side of the water wall, Park made one last try at arithmetic. His man lunged, umbrella down, launcher up. The river didn't roar. It changed shape. A flat hand of water skimmed low, tripped ankles, turned intent into embarrassment. Jung stepped in with zip ties and a bureaucrat's lethal compassion. Sirens learned the route to Pier 12. Harbor Authority arrived first. Men and women with clipboards and backs that didn't bow to money. They saw the compass on the cleat, the puddled net, the live counter rolling numbers like dice. Park's man face down on wet wood, and made the simple math. Seize the launcher, ask Park about permits. Counsel, Park said, too quickly. But his phone screen showed the only thing that matters to predators. He wasn't winning. His smile failed to reboot. Miss Choi stayed on live just long enough to catch the radio call. Captain Park, we'll need you to step aside. Then ended the stream with a frame of the compass and 2 hands in water. The river lowered itself back into sense. Sae-ri stepped to the pier. Jian didn't help without asking. May I? You may, she said. And he steadied her with the kind of touch you can show a city and not be ashamed of later. Harbor officers took statements with pens that had seen stranger nights. Jung logged chain of custody for the launcher like a man who trusts process because he's helped invent it. Park stood very still and learned how cold feels when money can't turn it off. Miss Choi exhaled the smallest victory and became logistics again. We go, she said, before anyone decides to mythologize on our behalf. They left the pier as the sky unspooled from graphite to the color of new paper. On the river stairs, Sae-ri paused. The water lapped once like a cat deciding it would allow affection today. What does the compass say now? She asked. Jian checked. The needle pointed, not north, to the slow bend of river and then, gently, back to her. He laughed. Unlearned. Bright. It points to what lets me breathe. Then it's finally useful, she said. They walked the last blocks without PR. No balcony speech. No hashtags. Just shoes learning the friction of ordinary ground. In the car, Jung drove like a person who had survived statistics. Ms. Choi texted 3 sponsors 1 sentence each. Artist safe. Evidence secure. We will not be edited. Back at the penthouse, the pool room smelled faintly of salt and solved problems. The ruined camera in the HVAC grate sat in a dish like a dead insect. The second device lay disarmed in a clear bag with a label that would one day look excellent in court. Jian rolled up his sleeve. The tide mark had retreated to a pale memory at the wrist. A faint blue that looked more like a story than a threat. Does it come back? He asked. When you forget why you're asking, Sae-ri said. Curses hate manners. They also hate amnesia. He nodded. Then I'll ask. Every time. Every time, she echoed. They stood by the pool the way people stand in doorways to rooms they've decided to keep. He lifted a hand, stopped, smiled at himself. May I? You may, she said, and the kiss was small and human and exactly the size a morning can hold. On the counter, the compass settled at last, needle quiet, brass warm. The city, having been fed witness instead of rumor, finally chose breakfast over drama. Choi! Jung called from the hall, brandishing a tablet. Board vote moved. Noon. Your mother. He glanced at Jian, corrected. Madam Han. Requests a private update that is somehow not private at all. Miss Choi pinched the bridge of her nose, then smiled like a general who has re-found her favorite map. Good. Let them come to a room with windows. Do we explain the sea? Jung asked. We explain consent, Miss Choi said. The rest they can learn like adults. Sae-ri poured a line of salt across the threshold, thin, neat, a habit that felt like a prayer without an audience. For luck, she said. For rules that keep us kind, he answered. They taped a paper sign to the stainless fridge with a dull piece of masking tape. Breathe here. They did. Together. And when the lights flickered once, like the building remembered too, nobody flinched. They laughed. Then they kept living.